Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, martes, el 23 de agosto. There was homework that you had due for today. There were three activities, three games you all had to play to practice the present tense conjugations of AR, ER, and IR verbs. You can click on that assignment, find it in modules, and play those activities. You can watch the video from the previous class for detailed instructions on how to go about completing that assignment. But that is due today at the end of the day. You do not have any homework for next class, and hopefully I'll be seeing you all in person next class if all goes well. Daily objectives for today: recognize and anticipate the types of vocabulary and information connected to interrogatives. Interrogatives are WH words. In English, who, what, when, where, why, and how. We call those WH words. The grammatical term is interrogatives, used to solicit information or interrogate, literally, to get information. And so we're going to learn those in Spanish and learn about the types of vocabulary or the information that you should expect to look for uh, according to whichever interrogative is being used. So that's going to help you in your reading comprehension in Spanish. And then adverbs of frequency, we're going to review those, and you guys are going to learn how to use those to express how often you guys do the hobbies and activities that you identified at the beginning of the academic year. So this is our to-do list for today. Warm up as always to get started. ¿Cómo se conjuga tu actividad favorita? How do you conjugate? ¿Cómo se conjuga tu actividad favorita? How do you conjugate the verb that you would identify as your favorite thing to do, your hobby or activity? So for today's warm up, choose a verb, any verb. For example, jugar, leer, escuchar, etc. And then you're going to conjugate it in all five forms. And when we say forms, we're talking about the different subject pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras. That at symbol again means either masculine or feminine. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Those are the five forms in Spanish and in English as well. You can take a look at the page that we put in Canvas that we reviewed last class. There was a PowerPoint as well that we looked through. And also page 9 of your textbook walks you through how to conjugate verbs in the present tense. So take a look at that, pick your favorite verb, and conjugate it. So the example I did was the verb escuchar. Escuchar, remember, is my infinitive, basic unconjugated form of the verb. These are all infinitives. And then you're going to remove the ending. These are the steps to conjugate, right? Remove the ending, the AR, ER, or IR ending, and then you're left with what's called the stem. And then as you can see here, you're going to add to the stem the endings, present tense endings, that correspond to each subject pronoun. Yo escucho, tú escuchas, él, ella, usted. All three of these subject pronouns share the same present tense ending, escucha. Nosotros or nosotras escuchamos, and then ellos, ellas, ustedes escuchan. O, as, a, amos, an. Your present tense endings for AR verbs. And again, the vosotros form used almost exclusively in Spain, you're not going to be required to do. So that's your warm-up for today. Pick a verb and conjugate it in the present tense. And that verb should be one of your favorite activities or hobbies. Let's go ahead and dive in the rest of the stuff that we got going on for today. Take a look at WH questions, interrogatives in Spanish, and you can join me in the textbook. I believe we're on page 11 now. Let me go ahead and get there. So again, interrogatives in English would be who, what, when, where, why, and how. We call these WH words. In Spanish, it's the same, just the equivalent in Spanish. We call these Q words. And they are right here. ¿A dónde? ¿Cómo? ¿Cuál? ¿Cuándo? ¿Cuánto? Or cuántos? ¿De dónde? ¿Dónde? ¿Por qué? ¿Qué? And quién, or quiénes. All of these, in terms of the English translation, are outlined in the module that we're working under. Remember, we're done with the intro orientation module now, and we're working in the Para Empezar module. It's kind of just to get started here. This first month, just doing a general overview before we really dive into new stuff. So this is where we last left off last class, the present tense or regular verbs and how to conjugate them. Conjugation bingo, by the way, we're not going to do till I get back later on this week, hopefully. It's a 100-point assignment, so I really want to make sure that you guys understand it clearly. And then also you have a spelling test. Some of you have already done this already because it's open, but I've not assigned it yet. You don't need to worry about that. These two assignments that don't have due dates, you're not responsible for yet. So these are the two things that we're looking at today. WH questions in Spanish. We just went over those in page 10 of the textbook, over here on the right-hand side. And this link right here will take you to Spanish Dictionary. As I've mentioned to you before, it's going to be our go-to resource, and it should be for you as well. And it gives you a nice overview of the different types of questions in Spanish. And then here toward the bottom, if I'm not mistaken, what they deem question words or WH words, you have them here. The pronunciation, of course, and then also the translation. So you can refer to that as well, and I get to that link by clicking here. But I'm going to assume that you've already done that, so let's go ahead and take a look at exercise 15. Vas a contestar unas preguntas, pero primero tienes que completarlas. You're going to answer a few questions, but first you have to complete them. You have to complete the question. So in your notebooks, write the numbers 1 through 7, and first you're going to fill in the blank with the appropriate interrogative, one of these WH questions. And then you're going to answer the question to the best of your ability using adverbs of frequency, and we'll get to those here in just a moment. Let's just focus on the question part first. So number 1, con blank pasas tiempo los fines de semana. You guys remember the verb pasar tiempo, that's to hang out, right? Or to spend time. And again, Spanish Dictionary, if you're not quite sure what any of the key terms are referring to. And then los fines de semana means the weekend. So this question wants to ask, with whom do you spend time on the weekends? Who do you kick it with on the weekends? So which one of these interrogatives do we want to use? ¿Quién? Or quiénes? And by the way, the difference between quién and quiénes, cuál or cuáles, cuánto or cuántos, is just singular or plural, right? Quién, who, referring to one person, and quiénes, meaning whom, referring to more than one person. So con quién or con quiénes pasas tiempo los fines de semana? Who do you kick it with on the weekends? The answer to number 1, quién. And we'll answer the question here in just a moment. Let's just do the first 3 together, how to formulate the questions. Number 2, blank vas al cine los viernes, los sábados, o los domingos. Blank do you go to the movies. This is the verb ir, the verb to go. Voy, vas, va, vamos, right? Let's go, vamos, van. So this question is asking, blank go to the movies. Blank, do you go to the movies? Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays? So if it's referring to time, right? Those are days of the week. Which interrogative do you think would be best fit for that one? Probably cuando, right? Because it's asking when. So this is what I want you guys to see the link between, and we have it in English. Cuando, which means when, is almost always going to be used with what? A reference to time. A day of the week, a time of the day, a month of the year, etc. Who, the first one, debatable in terms of what your context clues are there. Some interrogatives have more explicit context clues than others, and I think cuando certainly does because it's referring to time, right? It's asking time. So that's number 2. ¿Cuándo vas al cine? When do you go to the movies? Number 3. Blank vives? Blank do you live? ¿Estás cerca de la escuela? Cerca meaning close. Is it close to school? So if this is asking blank do you live, we're looking for where, which would be donde, right? And by the way, what's the difference between de donde and donde? De donde is asking about origin. For example, the question, ¿de dónde eres? Where are you from? Right? Yo soy de Brentwood. Yo soy de Massachusetts. Donde, on the other hand, is just referring to a location, not necessarily origin. In this case, where do you live? ¿Dónde vives? All right, so we've knocked out 1 through 3. Numbers 4 through 7, I'm going to challenge you and see if you can do on your own. But number 4 is asking, what sports do you practice? What or which is your favorite restaurant? You could even debate and say, where is your favorite restaurant? I think number 5 could have a few different interrogatives. Number 6 is asking, when do you use the computer? We know that because of the references to time, or in this case, time of day. And then this is asking, how many times do you go to the library during the week? So use that as a reference. Fill in the blank with the key interrogative. Now let's take a look at adverbs of frequency. And you guys can go to the next page here. So this is interrogatives. Hit next. And this takes you to adverbs of frequency. An adverb describes another verb, right? An adverb describes another verb, just like an adjective describes a noun. So an adverb of frequency indicates how often you do something, right? In English, adverbs of frequency include always, never, sometimes, usually, many times, rarely, etc. And so you have the equivalent here in Spanish. The percentages just kind of try to give you a quantitative representation. They're not totally exact, but generally speaking, siempre is always, right? Something that you always do. Nunca would be the exact opposite, meaning never. A veces would be right there in between, right? Sometimes. A veces. A menudo or muchas veces would be something that you do often. So you can see those different adverbs of frequencies there. And again, a reference to Spanish Dictionary, or in this case, study.com, and it gives you a layout of the different adverbs of frequency and a lot more of a robust list of adverbs. So refer to that, and then hop on over back to exercise 15, and answer the questions to the best of your ability, y'all. And this requires you to utilize the verb that's highlighted there Let's see, practicas for number 4. Es for number 5. Usas for number 6. And vas for number 7. I've highlighted the verb ir in pink because it is an irregular verb. Irregular meaning it doesn't follow the steps that we identified last class, just take the infinitive, drop the ending, and then add to the stem your regular present tense endings. Doesn't follow that rule. So 2 and 7 you're probably going to have a challenging time with, but lean on a classmate and see what they came up with for the answer, and I'll help you with number 2 at the very least. So let's do 1, 2, and 3 again together, and then we'll wrap up this video. So number 1 was con quién or con quiénes, right? One of the two. Con quién pasas tiempo los fines de semana? Who do you kick it with on the weekend? I kick it with my family on the weekend for the most part, right? So to begin my response, I'm going to begin with the yo form of this verb. And this is the verb pasar. I know it's an AR verb because it's using an AR ending, right? Like the verb escuchar. So I'm going to go in reverse, right? I'm going to start with pasas. I'm going to remove that ending and put the infinitive back. I want to start with the infinitive, and the infinitive would be pasar, P-A-S-A-R, right? And since I'm answering this question, I want to respond to the question using the yo form, because the yo form is I, right, when you're referring to yourself in the first person. So in my response, pasas changes to paso. Yo paso, meaning I kick it or I spend time. Yo paso tiempo los fines de semana con mi familia. Beautiful. Yo paso tiempo los fines de semana, means on the weekend, right? With mi familia. Now, if I want to add an adverb of frequency, excuse me, I can add that adverb at the very beginning, I can add it in the middle, I can add it at the very end. It's kind of like English. Let me give you an example. Siempre paso tiempo los fines de semana con mi familia. Or, yo paso tiempo los fines de semana con mi familia siempre. So either at the very beginning you can put the adverb of frequency, or you can put it at the very end. And even in some cases in the middle, but generally at the beginning or the end. Siempre, again, is my adverb of frequency to say always, or nunca, never, or a veces, sometimes. So you pick the adverb of frequency after you've successfully conjugated your verb. All right, I'm going to skip 2 just because it's the tricky example, and we'll go to 3 real quick. ¿Dónde vives? Where do you live? Technically, ¿a dónde vives? Actually, no. ¿Dónde vives is correct. Where do you live? So this is the verb vivir. And I'm going to go back here. Now, even though it's an IR verb, remember IR verbs have different endings. And if you want to take a look at those endings, you can go back to page 9. Actually, rather than pulling it up, let me show you really quickly where you can find it in modules. You can find it here. Right? There are the endings right there. The PowerPoint that I shared with you is right there. The videos that we took a look at, all there, and even that song as well. But here are your IR endings. Similar to AR endings, remember we're just switching out the A for an E. But actually the yo form for AR, ER, and IR verbs is always going to be O. The ending for AR, ER, and IR verbs in the yo form is O, just like how we did for number 1. So my response to number 3, Yo vivo, right? Vives is the to form. Change it from the to form to the yo form when I respond. Yo vivo in Brentwood. No está cerca de la escuela. Not a walkable distance. Close would be a walkable distance, right? I don't live a walkable distance from school. So my response, yo vivo in Brentwood. No está cerca de la escuela. Number 3, I can't really use an adverb of frequency because living somewhere is not something that you do with a particular frequency, right? It's just kind of permanent, more or less. More or less. Let's go back to number 2. So number 2 is asking, ¿Cuándo vas al cine? When do you go to the movies? This is the verb ir. So anytime you're not quite sure, I'm going to go to Spanish dictionary. And I'm going to show you what you can do anytime you come across a verb that you're not familiar with. So I'm going to put vas exactly the way it shows in Spanish dictionary. And it's going to tell me that it's the verb ir, right? Which is the verb to go. Now, again, ir is irregular. It doesn't follow the steps that we identified last class that we talked about earlier, right? Starting with the infinitive, remove the ending, and then add to the stem your present tense endings, whether there be AR, ER, or IR endings, right? Ir is irregular. Irregular meaning it doesn't follow those steps. It's kind of a grammatical rebel. So to get a handle on those grammar rebels, you want to type the verb into Spanish dictionary, find the infinitive. The infinitive is ir, and then I want you to go to conjugation. And when you do that, scroll down a little bit, you can see how that verb is conjugated in the present, preterite, which is the simple past. We'll get to that in second quarter. Imperfect is the continuous past. We'll get to that in quarter 3. Conditional, I don't think we'll get to this year, but we definitely will do the future in quarter 4. So you can see how the verb is conjugated in whatever tense. And for all intents and purposes, present tense is where we're going to be for the foreseeable future. And you'll probably recognize these conjugations. Voy, I go. Vas, you go. Va, he, she, or you polite goes. Vamos, let's go, or we go. And van, they go, or you plural go. So again, all these questions are directed to you. So for number 3, I want to begin by saying, number 2. Number 2, I want to begin by saying, yo voy, right? I'm going from the to form to the yo form. Yo voy al cine. I'm kind of a Saturday matinee kind of guy. Yo voy al cine los sábados. A veces. A veces voy al cine los sábados. Again, the adverb of frequency can go at the beginning or it can go at the very end. But that's the same verb that you would use for number 7 as well. My apologies, the video is going so long, but I'm not with you all, so I want to make sure that you guys had some guided examples here. I think exercise 18 was the only other exercise that you're doing. I made a mistake there. Hang on. Pretty sure it's exercise 18 on page 11. And I'll fix that. To practice adverbs of frequency, yes. Let's take a quick look at exercise 18, and then I'll let you all go. All right, so it says work with another student and ask them where they go in their free time. Work with another student and ask them where they go. See va there? Where they go in their free time. Trabaja con otro estudiante y pregúntale a dónde va en su tiempo libre. Tu compañero te va a contestar y va a decir con qué frecuencia va. So you guys have detailed instructions here and some examples to go off of. But since we have the video, I'll do the first one with you all. So use the model.
En verano voy a la piscina todos los días.
Try that again.
¿A dónde vas en el verano?
En el verano voy a la piscina todos los días.
So, a dónde vas is how you're going to begin. And then this part right here, you're going to replace, for student A, whoever's doing the question, right? You guys are going to alternate. One time, your partner can do student A, and then for the next one, you can do student A. You can do the question. Student A does the question. A dónde vas is asking, where do you go? Where do you go, in this case, en el verano? Verano is summer. And again, for words that you're not familiar with, you're going to throw it in to Spanish dictionary, and you guys know the drill. And this is how we acquire new vocabulary, regardless of where we're at. And then begin your response, just like how I showed you in the previous exercise, with the yo form of the verb ir, which would be voy. And you can take the beginning, or rather the end of the question, and make that the beginning of your response. ¿A dónde vas en el verano? Where do you go in the summer? The response, en el verano, in the summer. Yo voy, and then pick a spot. Pick a spot, and then pick how often you go there. En el verano, yo voy a la piscina todos los días. In the summer, I go to the pool every day. Todos los días is every day. En piscina is swimming pool. Centro comercial, playa, parque, gimnasio. You got a lot of cognates here, yeah? Words that look like, sound like, and have the same meaning. Playa means beach, but you remember that from Spanish 1. Let's do number 2 together. ¿A dónde vas los fines de semana? Remember, fines de semana is the weekend. Where do you go on the weekend? Response, los fines de semana yo voy al gimnasio. A veces. Or, a veces, los fines de semana yo voy al gimnasio. Again, the adverb of frequency can go at the beginning or at the end, and then you can pick a different spot. You're certainly not limited to these locations. Al restaurante, al cine, a San Francisco, a la casa de mis abuelos. I mean, wherever, right? And then you guys have the adverbs of frequency there that we went over earlier today. My apologies for the super long video, y'all, but you should hopefully have everything that you need now. There we go. Only change though is it's exercise 18 on page 11. I'll change that by the time you guys see this. Nothing you need to submit. You guys are doing that in your notebooks for practice, to review all of these essential concepts from last year. We need to have a solid foundation, and actually you guys are going to be referring to these concepts as we build on them throughout the year. So definitely make sure to put them in your notebook. Any questions you guys have, we'll debrief through all this stuff over the past week together, so no stress.